Escaping the Grind Audio presents Escaping the Grind from the Chronicles of Carlson by Nicholas Adam Kolodzy. Narrated by the author. Featuring Jim Cushnan as Tegan, Steve Bell as Eric D'Souza, Joe Kolodzy as Papa Wib, Doris Nagorski as Lisa, Wilman Kung as Noosnik, and Leah Taylor as Lauren. To Gigi. Prologue. Before the real world. The man tried to crush my hand with his sausage-sized fingers. Thursday, July 16th. 63 days since receiving my third university degree. 63 days plus 1 second since Papa Wib first harassed me about getting a real job. 14 job applications and 0 interviews so far. 17 days until the only girl I've ever been in love with moves to Peru. 2 minutes since Eric finally arrived here in the departure lounge, claiming he was late because he mixed up AM and PM. 1 minute since Tegan confessed he's always wanted to shag my aunt, and now that she's divorced, he'll try and make it happen. 5 hours until our plane is scheduled to arrive out west, and our graduation trip, an adventure across the Rocky Mountains, begins. Saturday, July 18th, 1998. Why did I listen to Dumb and Dumber? My privates are numb despite cycling the final 15 kilometers to the summit out of the saddle. The Coquihalla was so steep in this stretch that I barely averaged 6 kilometers an hour, though madly spinning in my easiest gear. I've had more than one anxiety attack. I have no idea where Eric and Tegan are. After witnessing a number of steaming, smoking automobiles pull over, I thought, if a 300 horsepower 4x4 can't make it up this monster without braking, how can I? It's 33 degrees and so humid that my sweat won't evaporate. I chose to walk. Miraculously, my cramping thighs willed the rest of my lanky body to the summit rest stop. There, a foul-smelling bathroom sat adjacent to a parking lot. I stumbled in, desperate for liquids, and thrust my dehydrated mouth beneath the cold faucet. A rusted sign by the tap read, "Not for drinking," with the small print saying, "Surface runoff. May contain mercury, cyanide, and arsenic." I didn't care. I also didn't recognize myself in the mirror. Brown stubble, now at the itchy stage, did not mask my gaunt cheeks and translucent skin. My sandy mane, plastered to my cranium, made me look like a kid with a fever. Goose pimples covered my forearms and sunburned, throbbing calves. Basically, I smelled like a hockey bag and looked like a serial killer. No one will take pity on me. I've asked several people for a lift to Merritt, another 60 kilometers down the toll highway. However, my appearance frightened everyone away, even the van full of stoned teenagers. Here now I rest, slouching against the exterior concrete walls of the rank bathroom, updating my diary. The majestic Rocky Mountains surround me, but I'm too exhausted to enjoy the view. Why didn't I listen to Uncle Willie?
"Whatever you do, boys,"
advised the old man this morning.
"don't take the Coquihalla."
I assured my concerned relative there would be no need to call my father back in Toronto. D'Souza, Tiggs, and I would comply.
"It's too steep, especially after the tunnel,"
he continued.
"Those avalanche chutes are there for a reason. Some cars can't even make it."
"We appreciate your advice,"
said Eric.
"Aye, cheers, mate,"
said Tegan. They pedaled away. Uncle Willie then pulled me so close I could tell his morning brew was a double-double.
"Trust the brown boy more than the Irishman."
"We'll be all right."
"I don't need to call your father?"
"Please, no. He'll worry." I gave Uncle Willie a big hug. "Thanks for everything." I hopped onto my bike and then caught up to my friends down the road.
"Bollocks,"
said Tegan.
"Willie's a gobshite. That other ride is for pussies."
"Tegan," I said, "my uncle's lived in the Okanagan his entire life. I think he would know."
"Dude, you're being conservative,"
said Eric, pointing to the grubby map of British Columbia we'd been using.
"Look how much shorter this is."
Eric was right. Taking the Coquihalla would save at least 90 kilometers of riding. "That's true," I said. "We could get back on schedule."
"We'd feckin' never be off schedule if you didn't write so many love letters. I'm surprised we feckin' left before noon today."
"Ha ha ha," I said, before giving him the finger. "At least I have a woman."
"Touché.
Besides, it wasn't my fault D'Souza got us lost that day.
You're right about that one, mate."
"Dude, stop fighting. Let's just go,"
said Eric. He pedaled off on his $6,500 Da Vinci road bike. Tegan and I followed, to our supreme regret. Thank God we bought greasy footlongs before leaving Hope. Nowhere on this beastly Coquihalla can we obtain sustenance. On our previous 2 days of cycling, Thursday, Vancouver Airport to Harrison Hot Springs, Friday, Harrison to Hope, finding food was no concern. We simply stopped every 30 to 40 kilometers for a rest and a bite. Now, my double meat, extra cheese, and mayo sub has to fuel me until Merritt. I'm certain Eric is already there. Tegan and I didn't train for this trip like he did. Riding a 17-pound carbon fiber bike doesn't hurt either. Even though Eric's been carrying one of my saddlebags, I pack too much. He's still always ahead of Teagues and me. Speaking of my scrawny, freckled friend, Tegan's probably an hour behind Eric and still cursing me for being slow.
Why'd you bring a fucking mountain bike?
He asked, 25 kilometers into today's ride.
I told you it'd be too heavy to climb these mountains. I'm going ahead, do you mind?
He didn't wait for a response. Alas, dear diary, I must now continue, probably to my impending doom. In the event that my feeble condition causes me to plummet off the Rocky Mountains, I've decided to write my obituary. To whoever finds my rotting corpse, be happy that my decomposed tissue is less odoriferous than the BO I had in the last hours of life. Carlson Chud Veach, June 12, 1974 to July 18, 1998. A recent graduate of Teachers College, Carlson was to become a secondary school teacher this fall, if he ever got hired. The poor sod died painfully, never knowing the joys of telling horny teenagers what to do. After swerving his cheap bicycle to avoid a mountain goat, young Veach tumbled off British Columbia's Coquihalla Highway to his demise. Surviving Carlson is his big-hearted father Wilbur, long-lost sister Kate, beautiful girlfriend Lisa, and wise Uncle Willie, who had warned Veach not to take the Coquihalla. To those left behind, please ignore the fact that Carlson died doing something idiotic and take comfort knowing that he joins his beloved mother Mary and hyperspastic dog Lady Bear in heaven. Since the body is too mangled, visitation will be closed casket. It occurs on Monday, July 20th, between 2 and 4 p.m., with the funeral to follow. Make donations to Queen's University, York University, or the newly created Carlson Veach Memorial Fund for Wayward Cyclists. 6:17 p.m. I'm alive! Mercifully, the soggy sub sandwich kicked in to raise my blood sugar and fuel my ride. Better still, much of the remaining journey was downhill. I actually had fun, especially when bombing down the last section at close to the 100 km/h speed limit. If I only knew the whereabouts of Tegan and D'Souza. I'm at the meeting point, the local clown, McDonald's restaurant. I used my calling card and the payphone here to leave a message on Eric's cell. Knowing Eric, mind you, he probably wouldn't think to check for messages. 6:35 p.m. Just wolfed down 2 supersized meals, so why is my stomach still growling? I'm sitting outside, hoping for a glimpse of Tegan or Eric. Country music now fills the air. Origin unknown. 6:42 p.m. Just engulfed a hot apple pie. The music is louder. A portly gentleman with crooked teeth, thick glasses, and a furry salt and pepper beard told me it's the 3rd day of the Merritt Mountain Country Music Festival. His name is Nathaniel. 6:51 p.m. Nathaniel told me the story of tonight's lineup. Marty Stewart got sick with the flu, so a local BC girl will croon in his place. Her name is Bobby Jones, and she'll sing before tonight's headliner, Travis Tritt. Sensing I was parched, Nathaniel waddled to his car and brought me back a 2-liter bottle of Merritt Mountain spring water. We shook hands, and the kind man was off. 7:03 p.m. Bought 2 soft ice cream cones. Returned outside. Flipped through tourist pamphlets. Found elevation profile of today's ride. The vertical section, 35 kilometers in, is what nearly killed me. Still no sign of Dumb and Dumber. 7:11 p.m. Bobby Jones now sings. I must admit she's good. Usually I despise country. 7:13 p.m. I see Teagues and D'Souza coming toward me off the highway. Somehow, my sorry ass beat them here. 9:30 p.m. Here's the story. After leaving Hope, Eric zoomed ahead and mistakenly turned east. Teagues and I were too far behind to notice he'd erred. D'Souza rode 25.4 kilometers towards Penticton before realizing his goof. This put Eric about 50 kilometers behind Teagues at the time he ditched me. Tegan and Eric confessed that the steepest part of the Coquihalla left them shattered and barely able to walk to the summit, let alone ride. Nobody granted them pity rides either. Tegan couldn't find decent shade at the summit rest stop, so he pedaled further to find some. He took a nap just off the Coquihalla in the shadows of the spruce trees lining the adjacent river. I overtook him during this slumber. Eric caught up to Tegan shortly after he resumed his ride. After Teagues and D'Souza filled up at Clown, we searched for a room. From roach motels to campsites, B&Bs, and five-star resorts, fans of the music festival had filled all vacancies. We bumped into Nathaniel at the Holiday Inn lobby. He'd forgotten his water bottles and was back to fetch them.
There's nothing unless you go back to Kamloops.
He said.
I drive you boys, but I have to look after my wife and kids. Best of luck.
None of us wished for another 80-kilometer ride, especially in the dark. We chose to crash on an inconspicuous hill behind Clown. Mosquitoes attacked Tegan and me throughout the night. Somehow, Eric was immune.
Bloody hell.
Said Teagues. Midgies, I whispered. Eric appeared to be sleeping.
Aye,
I heard him slap one against his neck.
vile creatures.
Eric ripped a big fart and deadpanned.
That should keep them away.
I thought you were asleep.
Shite. Get your arse examined.
How many ice cream cones did you eat? I asked Eric.
3.
He said.
Aren't you fucking lactose intolerant?
Asked Teagues.
Yes.
Said Eric.
But have you been bitten in the last minute?
D'Souza was right. His noxious emissions protected us. Sunday, July 19th.
Do you have to write your fucking love letters just before we leave?
Barked Teagues. It was already 11 a.m., and I just mailed my latest postcard.
We'll fucking never make it to Kamloops at this rate. And ain't your sister expecting a lot of us on the 27th?
Dude, just write to Lisa after we finish our ride for the day.
Said Eric.
Or you can use my cell and collar.
Compared to yesterday, today's 3-hour jaunt to Kamloops was heaven. The entire route was flat or downhill. Kamloops means the meeting of the waters, and for good reason. Both the North and South Thompson rivers join here, dividing the picturesque city in half. Near downtown, the Canadian National and Canadian Pacific rail lines meet, and so do 3 major highways. It's no wonder Kamloops is the official tournament capital of Canada. After last night's sleep on the hill, we chose to splurge on accommodations. Our room has 2 queen beds and a cot. Usually, we take rooms with only 1 queen bed and a cot. The hotel has a pool and offers a buffet breakfast. We spent the afternoon lounging poolside and playing cards. I now lead the series in rummy, whereas in 952 we're tied at 4. Between games, we read or drifted off for a snooze in the soothing sun. During dinner, Tegan complained that he hadn't been laid during the trip.
Christ, Teagues!
Said Eric.
We've only been here 4 days. We're not all playboys like you.
Nice to see a little spark in you.
Replied Tegan.
See those titties over there?
How could we not? The woman attracted more than just our glances. Along with a great rack, she had a perfect olive complexion. Tegan covered his bony shoulders with a golf shirt. He stood up and walked toward the beauty.
Come on, Teagues. She must be 35.
Said Eric. She's way out of your league, I said. What is it about Tegan that women find attractive? Are they suckers for his accent? Does he display a certain charm I don't see? He must at least censor his vulgarities. Within minutes, Tegan had her laughing. Drinks arrived. Tegan sipped his traditional rum and coke, while the beauty preferred a colorful martini. She removed her t-shirt, revealing a skimpy bikini that barely held her perfectly shaped breasts. Tegan winked at us when she flung back her salon-quality black hair. I can't take this, I said to Eric.
Sports Center should be on soon.
Said Eric.
And that means Tour de France highlights.
Let's go. Last night, Eric was ecstatic to discover that his idol, Jan Ullrich, had won Stage 7 of the Tour. Ullrich now wears the maillot jaune as overall leader of the Tour. There are 14 more stages, including 3 in the Alps and 2 in the Pyrenees. Personally, I'm more interested in baseball. Sosa and Maguire's chase for the record has got me watching for the first time since the Jays won the World Series. Think Sosa or Maguire hit another homer? I said.
Who cares, dude? They're both juiced. I want to see Tour highlights.
You don't think Ullrich is doping?
That's blasphemy.
We were back in our room. Eric flipped on the tube and found Sports Center. To Eric's disappointment, anchorman Darren Detishin said that Ullrich had lost his lead in the Tour de France today. This blow was somewhat softened by the news that neither Sosa nor Maguire hit a home run today.
There are more stages,
said Eric.
He'll get the yellow back.
Eric turned off the tube and then asked me,
If I let you use my cell to phone Lisa tomorrow, will you help me with my entrance essay?
That was random, I said. Eric's mind is so full of unrelated ideas that it's sometimes difficult for him to organize his thinking. No problem, I said. Is this for the med school in Australia?
Yes. And oh yeah, your dad left a voice message for you on my cell.
Today?
The day we were in Harrison Hot Springs.
How fitting. Eric, that was 3 days ago. D'Souza was always late for kinesiology lectures. The class of 1997 even bought him a watch before convocation so he wouldn't be tardy. The plan failed. The students for our year were already in alphabetical order and on our way to Jock Hardy Arena before my scatterbrained friend arrived.
Dude,
Said Eric.
I'm sorry.
He played me the message. Papa Webb was so wound up with excitement that his already rapid speech cadence was elevated to the tempo of an auctioneer.
Hey, big guy, leaving this message to say that on July the 30th, you got an interview with a former colleague of mine, Mrs. Kelly Turner, for a science position at Kipling Secondary. Bye.
My first interview for a real job. 12:18 a.m. Can't sleep. I keep worrying about what to say to Mrs. Turner. How will I compensate for my lack of professional experience? What if she figures out that during my placements, my associate teachers did all the class discipline and, because of that, I have no idea how to manage a group of teenagers by myself? If I told her about my love for working with younger people and my passion for promoting fitness, would that be enough? Would a display of my anal retentive organizational skills cover for my weaknesses? 2:13 a.m. Still awake. Still thinking about job interview. Shouldn't have taken the afternoon nap. Periodic leg cramps don't help either. At least D'Souza isn't farting. Tegan just came in, went inside the bathroom, and turned the tap on. He didn't even notice me writing in my diary using my pen light to see. 2:18 a.m. Tegan now out of the bathroom. I didn't hear the toilet flush. What was he doing in there? There'd better not be a steamer in the porcelain. Tegan just collapsed on the cot and mumbled. 2:19 a.m. Tegan already snoring. Monday, July 20th. As Eric and I awoke, Tegan was fiddling with his bike.
I'm going to eat.
He said. Tegan appeared to have a black eye. We caught up a few minutes later. At the buffet, a grand assortment of fruit, cereal, cooked meat, eggs, and bread awaited us. We loaded our plates with calorie-high bacon, eggs, and sausages. Tegan sat in a dark corner. We joined him. Indeed, Tegan did sport a shiner,
Fuck you.
he said to the laughing D'Souza.
Don't you say anything.
We deduced that Tegan's plan to get lucky must have backfired,
How was I supposed to know the woman was married?
said Tegan. Eric and I burst into hysterics.
Her fucker was big too. Came back and kicked me back this morning. Fucking broke a spoke in the wheel.
After breakfast, we returned to the room. Tegan arrived last, his pockets filled with muffins.
For the road.
He said. Eric and Teagues forbade me to write a postcard to Lisa before we cycled the 133.8 kilometers to Sycamus. The black-eyed Irishman, the absent-minded brown boy, and the lovesick neurotic continued our picturesque ride along Shuswap Lake. Today's high-fat breakfast made it a slow one, as we all suffered from different versions of gastrointestinal distress. Tegan puked, I had cramping problems, and D'Souza blew farts. We vowed to load up on carbohydrates instead of bacon and sausage at the next buffet. Sycamus lies past the Salmon Arm portion of Shuswap Lake. Salmon Arm is also a town, named for the plentiful salmon present in the lake when settlers first arrived. Apparently, they use pitchforks to pluck the salmon from the water, and even use the fish to fertilize crops. Sycamus is also the houseboat capital of Canada. We're staying in one now. Tegan is snoring. About 10 minutes ago, he got up, went to the bathroom, and turned on the tap, only to emerge 5 minutes later, just like last night. No toilet was flushed, and he didn't leave a steamer. I checked the toilet for shit last night. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Come to think of it, he did the same thing when we stayed in the Roach Motel in Chilliwack. Whatever it is, Tegan was out before his head hit the pillow, so it works. Eric's now tossing and turning beside him, but nothing seems to awaken Teagues. I just got off the phone with Lisa.
Chud,
She said.
how are you?
Great, I said. I kind of like this traveling thing.
Now you know why I'm going to Peru.
I'm going to miss you. I don't know what I'll do.
I'll miss you too.
I wish you weren't going.
You know this is important. I have to do this for me.
But what about us? Lisa changed the subject.
I got your first postcard this morning.
I'm writing one every day.
You're a sweet man, Carlson. So is everything on schedule?
We're a bit behind.
Will you make it to Kate's on time?
I hope so. I don't want to pay the penalty for changing my flight home. Look, I was just calling to say hello, and the boys are trying to sleep, so I should go.
Good night then.
Miss you.
Me too.
I just heard Eric mutter.
Screw this.
Now he's off to the bathroom with the tap on, presumably doing it. I hope it isn't what I think it is. Tuesday, July 21st. I remembered to ask Tegan about it. We had stopped for a snack inside the forested peaks of Mount Revelstoke National Park. High-calorie muffins were essential to fuel the 72.4-kilometer climb to Rogers Pass,
I was snapping off.
he said, without a hint of shame. I spit out a few blueberries from my muffin.
You gotta do something about the MSB.
MSB? I asked.
Fucking massive sperm build-up, you dumb shite.
Just be happy you turned the tap on.
Said Eric, laughing. I recalled Eric visiting the bathroom after Tegan. Wait a minute. You too? I asked Eric. He nodded. Feeling self-righteous, I said, well, I don't need to do that until after Lisa leaves.
For you to say, you probably had sex with her the night before we flew here.
Yeah, so?
Dude, I'm on a bit of a dry spell. Remember?
Carlson,
Said Tegan.
you can't fucking tell me you'll make it the rest of the trip.
Yes, I said. Yes, I can.
$20 says you can't make it.
This is not an episode of Seinfeld. We're not repeating the contest.
Is that a yes or a no?
We're now at the center of Glacier National Park at Rogers Pass, 1,382 meters above sea level. Our ride up Mount McDonald felt effortless because of the view. Though the air was 23 degrees Celsius, glaciers were only steps off the highway, slowly melting away. What's more, a quick glance upward revealed snow-capped mountains, which completely surrounded us. If this is what traveling is like, I'm hooked. I'm writing from inside Glacier Park Lodge, located at the summit of Mount McDonald. Eric's watching Sports Center. McGuire hit his 43rd homer, and Ulrich is back in yellow, so we're both happy. Tegan is trying to fix his bike. He broke another spoke, and the front tire is wobbly. Since we can't find a repair shop up here, Tegan hopes he can safely coast down the mountain to Golden, our destination for tomorrow. An hour ago, we played rummy. I won the first 3 games. Tegan refused to play anymore because he can't compete against my...
Bloody fucking card counting.
I have no idea for Eric's essay yet. Wednesday, July 22nd. I almost gave in to it last night. Despite practicing the breathing exercise my therapist recommended, I couldn't sleep because I kept dwelling on my relationship with Lisa. How am I going to survive months without seeing her? I can visit on the holidays, but financing the flight requires employment. I'll be penniless after this adventure. I may be forced to work with my dad at the driving range. What if she wants to break up with me? She hinted at a breakup in April, stating,
6,000 kilometers is an awful long way, Carlson.
maybe I'm being paranoid, but what if my perceptions are true? Shortly after resuming our adventure, 79.2 kilometers today to Golden, we rescued a vagabond named Christian. Somehow, his waif-like physique had managed to tow a mountain bike and 2 cargo trailers up Rogers Pass. Cycling down, though, was the real dilemma. Christian's brake cable snapped 4 days ago when he was in Penticton. The plucky fellow couldn't afford the repair costs. Christian used the soles of his work boots, now completely smooth, to slow down. Tegan gave him spare brake cables, and together with Eric, fixed his bike. Sporting a 1980s mullet and full beard, Christian was halfway through his 2,000-kilometer ride to Saskatoon. He hopes to find work there. Though at least 15 years our senior, Christian's lifelong possessions fit inside the first trailer, probably less than 2 cubic meters in volume. The second cart was a tent-covered child trailer. We were all amused and relieved that Christian wasn't towing a child. Instead, it housed his dearly beloved Rottweiler, Chico. The dog and Christian share the tent at night and subsist on tuna and white bread. We took a couple of photos, gave them a few of today's stolen muffins, and were back on the road. D'Souza cycled to the lead as customary, with Tegan shortly behind. When I arrived, Eric had already found lodgings, and Teagues was off somewhere repairing his bike. We're staying in the cramped, dusty attic of a bed and breakfast. Eric couldn't find a vacancy elsewhere. In fact, Mrs. O'Leary, the stern proprietor, initially refused him the claustrophobic room.
Young man, there's barely room for 2,
She'd snipped.
and I have enough brekkie to prepare already.
D'Souza had to promise we'd help with the dishes before the old bag relented. Mrs. O'Leary needn't have worried. Tegan spent the night in Anne-Marie's room. We were watching TV in the common room when Teagues and I first viewed her slender, toned thighs. Eric was too enthralled with the tour. Ulrich is still in yellow, to notice. Tegan wasted little time,
You get beautiful legs.
said the charmer. Using the internet at the B&B, I've learned that Canadair offers a flight to Lima, Peru on Boxing Day. I phoned Lisa using her Excel. I asked her if it was okay for me to come down. She hesitated, but then agreed and suggested we visit the Amazon or Machu Picchu. Why did she pause before giving me an answer? Did she want to break up with me in the interim? Or worse, forever? I dare not leave before Boxing Day. It would break my father's heart. Kate doesn't usually come home, so I can't leave Papa Wib alone on Christmas Day. I wish Kate would just forgive Dad about Mom's death. Unless they haven't told me something, it wasn't his fault. Thursday, July 23rd. Tegan's gone. Anne-Marie took him away. Eric and I rode 83.1 kilometers over the Kootenay Rockies to Lake Louise, Alberta, without Tegan's foul language and crass comments. Witnessing the awe-inspiring, shadowy peaks of Kicking Horse Pass just wasn't the same.
She's a fucking great lay.
Tegan had bragged.
We're going to hitch the Squamish and do some climbing.
We understood. A promise of sex and rock climbing was too much for him to resist. Before Tegan left, Eric had a suggestion for us.
Teagues, why don't you switch bikes with Carlson?
A brilliant scheme.
He'll be able to draft off of me using your road bike, and you'll probably need his mountain bike if you do any off-roading in Squamish.
Tegan nodded. Then Anne-Marie interjected.
There's some kick-ass trails in Whistler, too.
The lustful pair caught the first ride after breakfast. How Teagues will get back to Calgary in time for the flight home is a mystery. Tegan's obsession with rock climbing began 2 years ago, soon after arriving in Canada. He just started postgrad studies in exercise physiology at Queen's when Eric and I first met him. About to commence our final year as undergrads, D'Souza and I were back early to train for cross-country running season. Sick of being the fastest of the slower training group, affectionately branded the Fast Slow Guys, we desperately wanted the label Slow Fast Guys, or better yet, Fast Fast Guys. During a punishing 13-kilometer run, Coach Pereira followed us on his mountain bike. Unusually caustic that year, who wouldn't be after a double knee replacement, he barked orders, especially during the final sprint down Earl Street.
Drop your arms! Keep your heads forward!
He screamed. After the run, Coach made us lift weights. At one point, Eric and I feebly attempted to bench press 2 plates for 10 reps. During my 7th rep, I began to weaken. Just then, we heard,
Fucking shite. Bollocks. Fuck.
in a strange accent. Distracted, Mr. Absent-Minded neglected to spot me. My pectorals slowly gave out, and the cold barbell, loaded with 135 pounds, descended towards my neck. Eric! I wheezed. Help! Noticing my peril, Eric's brown skin actually turned crimson. Embarrassed, he lifted the bar to safely. You little shit! I screamed. The bar nearly crushed my windpipe. I cuffed him on the shoulder.
Dude, I'm so sorry.
Quickly forgiven, Eric and I ceased working out and went to investigate the commotion. Around the corner from the free weights was a climbing wall. It was there we first met the man from Ireland. Tegan's scrawny physique made Eric and me feel like Schwarzenegger. Attempting to traverse the wall with no hand shock and wearing docks, Tegan was doomed. After losing a foothold, then a handhold, his bony ass tumbled onto the moldy blue safety mats.
Fuck.
He bellowed once more.
You okay?
Questioned Eric.
Yeah, just fucking frustrated.
Responded Tegan. Eric told him about the Queen's Climbing Club. Since then, Teagues has been to Joshua Tree, California with them twice and can flash 511D on the Yosemite Decimal System. To flash, dear diary, means climbing a route without falling, and 511D is an advanced climb where the hardest move on the route has only one small handhold or foothold. It's a level reserved for the ridiculously talented or perpetually unemployed. Since Tegan left early with Anne-Marie, Eric and I got stuck doing the dishes. Choosing to dry, Eric didn't have to endure Mrs. O'Leary's beak constantly peering over his shoulder. Somehow, the old bat could find the tiniest particle of dirt through thick glasses and cataracts.
Young man, you've missed another speck on this fork.
Friday, July 24th. Tegan's bike is fast. Why did I bring a mountain bike in the first place? On the brisk 58.9-kilometer ride to Banff, we passed a wild moose. Its large snout reminded me of my father. I sent him a moose postcard with the message, "Remind you of anyone? Love your son, Chud." In fact, I got a little obsessive with the postcards. To Lisa from the secluded Emerald Lake. Lisa, wish you were here cuddling with me. XOXOXO. Love, Chud. To my high school friend Megan from the top of Sulphur Mountain. Megan, guess who felt at home here with the stink? How's the boyfriend? Carl. To Uncle Willie from Bow Falls and the Hoodoo Pillars. Uncle Willie, we should have listened to you. The Coca-Cola nearly killed us. Don't tell my dad, okay? Carlson. To my old friend Rick from the Banff Hot Springs Hotel. Rick, lots of bikini-clad women here. You should have taken a break from your 80-hour work weeks on Bay Street and come. Stop buying condos, cars, and other toys, and use the money for travel instead. Carl. To my sister Kate from the Columbia Icefield. Hey sis, Eric and I should arrive on schedule. We got behind, but we'll skip the rest day. Your bro Carlson. P.S. You'll be happy to know that Teagues isn't coming. Saturday, July 25th. What a thrill! Eric and I dreamed we were pros riding the Tour de France. Drafting off each other like we were in the peloton, we averaged 40.2 kilometers per hour for the 144.3 kilometer ride to Calgary. If D'Souza and I could do these rides 20 days in a row without stopping for food, without a 1% downhill grade, and without a slight tailwind, we'd be Jan Ulrich's Domestiques on Team Deutsche Telekom. Only a few kilometers from our hotel in the southwest, Calgary is a modern city divided into quadrants. Eric and I rode past the bobsled tracks used in the 1988 Olympics. We stopped for pictures and also inquired if the city offered rides to the public. They do, just not in July. Next time, Eric and I will brave the two-man sled and maybe even try speed skating at the Oval. Sunday, July 26th. Chinook winds in a 300-meter elevation drop helped Eric and me complete today's monotonous 181.1 kilometer ride to the cattle town of Brooks, Alberta. Dead prairie dogs, Cynomys gunnison, and wheat were the only things to look at for nearly 6 hours. Sometimes I drifted mentally and let D'Souza pull away. Consuming my mind were thoughts of Lisa and worries about what to say in my upcoming interview. Eric typically didn't notice my absence. I'm sure he just imagined himself riding along Ulrich on the cobbled Champs-Élysées in Paris. Monday, July 27th. Medicine Hat, near the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, is where my older sister Kate lives and works. Today's 131.8 kilometer ride here was another bore. I secretly wished for a flat tire so I could give Eric a valid excuse to stop and put a temporary end to the tedium. I counted 27 dead prairie dogs before first viewing the city from the highway. Since the Trans-Canada is so straight and flat here, you can see forever. It was another 11 dead rodents before we arrived at Kate's front door. She wasn't home, but left us a note, handwritten in her faultless cursive.
Chud and Eric, welcome to Medicine Hat. I'm sorry, but I was called in for an extra shift. The key is where we discussed.
Eric and I took several minutes to locate the elusive key. Kate had left the details of its hiding spot on Eric's voicemail. Inside the frog's mouth was all he remembered. Kate has 14 porcelain frogs on the front porch of her bungalow, and an additional 12 in the garden. We eventually located the key inside a purple frog beneath the juniper bush. Kate had left us a second note on the fridge.
Make yourselves at home. There's lasagna in the fridge. Kate. P.S. Sometimes the microwave short circuits, so use the oven if you wish. P.P.S. My boyfriend Drew may be around later, before he picks me up at work. P.P.P.S. He's a little scary looking, but don't worry.
Indeed, Drew's appearance is frightening. However, his sunken brown eyes, acne-scarred skin, square jaw, and barrel chest masked the timid man within.
Hi, I'm Drew,
he said in a soft-spoken tone. I extended my hand. Drew's handshake was weak, like a wet noodle, and he squeezed my fingers instead of my palm. This is one mistake I won't make when meeting Principal Turner in 3 days. After a dinner of cold lasagna, Drew gave us a tour of Medicine Hat. Oil is the main industry in the Hat, supporting its 60,000 residents. However, there's more to this place than black gold. We're in Canada's sunniest city, so it's no wonder that 8 golf courses and over 100 kilometers of trails are found here. Most of these trails link to the Saskatchewan River, which snakes its way through downtown. The highlight was a visit to the world's largest teepee, a mammoth structure standing 20 stories high. After the tour, we picked up Kate from Sunnyside Care Center, a nursing home.
Be prepared for polyester,
said Drew as we walked inside. He wasn't kidding. Seemingly all the residents wore blue or brown polyester pants.
There must be a lot of static cling,
said Eric.
I hate to be the one doing their laundry.
We use powerful fabric softener,
responded Drew.
I know. I do their laundry sometimes.
Drew walked us down the main foyer. A random resident called out,
Nurse?
We weaved amongst an endless number of fogies using walkers and canes.
Usually I do maintenance work here,
continued Drew.
but sometimes they need an extra hand down in the laundry.
Is there a bed care wing?
Asked Eric,
Yes.
said Drew.
I draw the line at cleaning shit off their clothes, though.
Nurse!
Called another resident from within a room. What's bed care? I asked,
Where people go to die.
said Eric.
They're often incontinent.
We passed the smoking room. 3 women surrounded a single man, who appeared to enjoy the attention. One of the women, cigarette dangling from her mouth, adjusted a dial on the man's oxygen tank. A long plastic tube ran from the tank and through a nosepiece on his face,
Emphysema.
Eric commented. A second woman noticed Drew and knocked on the glass to get his attention. Drew waved, and we continued down the hall until we reached an elevator. We rode up to special care, a wing in the nursing home where the residents with Alzheimer's live. All the women have poodle perms, I remarked. Kate greeted Drew with a kiss, me with a hug, and D'Souza with a handshake.
Drew,
She said,
Yes, hon.
I need another half hour or so.
Anything for you, baby.
"He's whipped," I whispered to Eric.
Dude,
He said.
you think you're any different with Lisa?
Drew punched in a code outside the door to special care. It clicked open.
Get in quick, or some of them will try to escape.
I pushed Eric through the door and followed close behind. According to Drew, Mr. Harris once figured out the exit code and escaped. The octogenarian found his way across the U.S. border to Butte, Montana. Butte is about 100 kilometers south of here. The local police found Mr. Harris at a gas station payphone trying to order tacos. Drew led us around the U-shaped wing. We passed the common room. There, a gaunt old woman watched pro wrestling on TV. "That poor man," she said. "They're beating him up just because he's a Negro." Eric explained that the show was scripted and choreographed, but the thin woman didn't get it.
Nurse!
She called out. Drew introduced us to Mr. Harris, who was playing solitaire,
I'll see you guys in a bit.
said Drew. He walked back down the hallway. Several residents swarmed around him, like a bunch of 5-year-olds chasing a soccer ball. They knew he had the exit code. For a man with dementia, Mr. Harris sure was a card shark. Eric and I played 952 with him. Often looking confused, he would pat down his white hair and squeeze his Popeye-sized forearms like a nervous tick. However, it was all a ruse, for the instant Mr. Harris sensed our pathos, he'd strike and win most of the tricks. The old fart defeated us within 45 minutes. The experience with Mr. Harris inspired me to finish Eric's essay. Mr. Harris became Hanu Makola, a fictional senior citizen with dementia. The essay details Eric's relationship with the 81-year-old immigrant from Finland. Included are the 952 story and a modified version of the Butte, Montana misadventure. I changed Medicine Hat, Alberta to Kingston, Ontario, and Butte, Montana to Watertown, New York, and made Eric the hero. I'm sure the University of Sydney Medical School will never know that Carlson Veach was the ghostwriter. Tuesday, July 28th. Eric's mission is to ride the entire width of Canada. He pedaled away after breakfast. Kate and I, plus her 26 porcelain frogs, wished him good luck. Eric's going to need it. He's got another 5,800 kilometers before reaching Cape Spear, Newfoundland. Tegan never arrived at Kate's, so I guess things went well with Anne-Marie. Or maybe he got run over like one of the 18 prairie dogs I counted on today's ride back to Bassano. Hopefully, he'll meet me at the Calgary airport tomorrow. Despite a satisfying double cheeseburger lunch in Bassano, I didn't want to get back in the saddle. My crotch had just awoken from a state of numbness, and I was pissed off. Before leaving Kate's, a bitter argument with her had triggered my emotions. We had a big row over Mom's death. Kate can't let go of her anger at Dad for supposedly letting it happen. She wants me to ask Dad about the lawsuit, and I want her to bury the hatchet and come home for Christmas for the first time since she moved west. I'd used my anger to fuel the ride to Bassano, but it was time to stop dwelling. When Brita offered me a ride to Calgary, I didn't hesitate to accept. Brita was an elegant-looking older woman who reminded me of my mother. She kept saying,
You have much to learn, young one.
when I opened up to her about my frustrations with Kate. I felt a little bit like Luke Skywalker absorbing the wisdom of Jedi Master Yoda. When I was a Star Wars-obsessed kid, Mom used to explain things to me using Jedi lingo. After she suffered another blackout, I asked her, "Are you going to die?"
I might die,
she said, snuggling her weakened 90-pound frame around me.
but I am your force, and I will always be with you.
Wednesday, July 29th. Home. Tegan never made it to the Calgary airport. But I'm not worried. The man traveled to 5 continents before his 25th birthday. He can look after himself. Papa Wib picked me up at Pearson Airport at 8:51 p.m. He had some banana bread ready, Mom's old recipe, in case my blood sugar was low. Dad also noticed me fidgeting. Who wouldn't fidget after being cramped up on a plane? We stopped at Centennial Park so I could go for a run. I love my father. I've decided not to shave my beard because it's past the itchy stage, and I've never had one before. Job interview tomorrow. Thursday, July 30th. Kelly Turner, principal of Kipling Secondary, is a tiny woman, but everyone respects her. The secretaries, custodians, and teachers all straighten up and work a little harder when she's nearby,
Carlson, it's a pleasure to meet you.
she said, offering a firm handshake.
Please come into my office.
There was no bullshit with this lady. I felt comfortable around her. Unfortunately, Kelly will retire mid-September. Her replacement seems like a dick. Mr. Damien Glenn's laconic personality was less than endearing. He merely nodded at me when I said hello. In addition, the man tried to crush my hand with his sausage-sized fingers during our handshake, as if it was some sort of contest. I resisted the squeeze as best I could. At least Mrs. Turner tried to appear interested during the interview. I know I babbled far too much, but Mr. Glenn did nothing to hide his boredom. He yawned at least 3 times and was constantly looking at his gold watch, like he had somewhere better to be. At one point, however, I caught Mrs. Turner shooting him a disciplinary glance. He stayed focused after that. My casual appearance, disheveled beard, khakis with Birkenstocks, and a collarless dress shirt probably didn't help either. Mr. Glenn couldn't have been impressed. Not a single bristle of his salt and pepper hair was out of place. He wore a stylish silver 3-piece suit, but the matching tie was so tight that some of his neck fat spilled over the top of the collar. Yes, ties are like a noose around the neck. I left the interview feeling it was a bit of a bust. Hopefully, it wasn't too obvious that I often had no idea what I was talking about. And why didn't I emphasize my passion for promoting fitness to kids? Maybe I won some points with my polished answer to the cooperative learning question. Lisa came over tonight. She gave me a kiss hello, and then quickly complained that my beard was making her itchy. Further affection was to be withheld until I removed the patchy fur. Dutifully, I ran downstairs and shaved my facial hair. However, in my haste, I cut myself above the Adam's apple, and the tiny wound refused to stop bleeding. Imagine trying to have a serious discussion with the one you love while constantly dabbing a shaving cut.
This is hard for me to do, Chud, but it's necessary.
I knew what was coming. Lisa looked me in the eye and into my soul. She started crying, but I knew she was resolved in her decision. Lisa insists that we officially break up on August 2nd, the day she flies to Peru.
If we're truly meant to be together, we'll know when you visit after Christmas.
Friday, July 31st. Papa Wib now works part-time at the 7th Street driving range. Located within walking distance from home, we live at number 355 6th Street. I stopped to visit after my long run, a fast slow guy time of 1:31:11 for 20 kilometers. Dad was out on the tractor collecting golf balls. As a joke, I bought a small bucket and aimed my shots directly at him. Eventually, after a few slices, the wind off nearby Lake Ontario exaggerated this effect. I hit the bullseye. My perfect 250-yard drive hit the cage, protecting Dad inside the tractor. Papa Wib saw it was me and looked pretty pissed. I ran back home to avoid a lecture. When Dad got home, I had roast beef and potatoes ready for dinner, but he still gave me an earful.
I taught an extra 2 years to help you through university,
he yelled with his typical rapid cadence.
I set up an interview for you. I retired at the exact time to make a spot in the system for you, and this is the thanks I get.
I gave Papa Wib some extra gravy, but the meal was still pretty quiet after his rant. Sheesh. Sorry, Dad, I said. I can't understand why he was so irritated. It was just a little prank.